Hey, what's up, friends? I don't have time to argue with you. I don't have the time to argue with you. How many of you been through that as a couple? You tired of arguing? You've said no more. You want a solution when it comes to arguing less with your spouse. If that's you, you're in the right place. My name is Dr. Tartt, and welcome to another edition of Heart to Heart with Dr. Tartt. I'm excited about it. Today, we are talking about how to argue less in your relationships, how to stop arguing less in your relationships. Oh my goodness, how many of y'all are tired of that? I know you are. Make sure y'all are subscribing and liking to this channel. All right, I am doing everything in my power to make sure that y'all have great mental health, great relationships from a professional whom you can trust. I'm representing for all the psychologists out there, all the counselors out there, professionally trained therapists, even clergy who are professionally trained. So let's go. Let's talk about how to resolve arguments in your relationships. I'm going to tell you, this is going to scare you. I'm going to tell you how to make a marriage fall apart based on how you argue. The research is convincing. So let's dive in. All right, so listen to this. All right, why is fighting bad? How many of you know that a toxic relationship takes 8 to 10 years off of your life? 8 to 10 years off of your life. I had a woman who I saw, and she was always getting into it with her husband. It was 50-50. All right. But I was trying to tell her, I said, look, you're going to have to either go a different way or your health is going to be compromised. And she ended up having a stroke. And I know a lot of that had to do with the conflict. So I'm saying this to scare you all intentionally. And when you argue, cortisol is dumped into your body. That cortisol dumped into your body makes everything 11 times worse. All right. So 11 times the doctors have been able to quantify that cortisol, that stress hormone in your body is awful for you. And so if you're in a toxic relationship where you're beefing all the time, you may want to stay in that relationship or marriage if you choose, but just know that it's costing you years. It's costing you health. All right. And then fighting causes compound problems, right? Because like I give you an example. As me with a couple, and I said, all right, what brings you in? And woman's like, wife says, go ahead and tell him. He's like, nah, you tell him. She was like, see, you never step up. I guess I'll do everything. He's like, there you go again. Like, what do you mean there I go again? And he's like, you do the most because you do too little. Why don't you just let me, if you just let me do it. Now, why don't you let me run this as a man? Well, if you act like a man, see, okay, who says that? Who does that? That's how you can't keep a man, because you don't know how to treat one. You get one. They didn't even get to the issue before they started arguing. They had a pre-argument, y'all. All right. And I know y'all laughing because couples do it all of the time. But when you get to that degree, it's a compound problem because we're so toxic, even talking about our issues. The slightest little thing causes us to start insulting one another. But here's the big thing that I want you to get. I want you to see this. All right. There's 4 horsemen that kill marriages 90% of the time. And I want to clarify that. That means if you have the combination of these 4 things in your marriage, it is going to kill it 90% of the time. Now, that should scare you. 90% of the time. Saying, like, how in the world do they know this? Well, Dr. Gottman, his wife, Dr. Julie Swiss Gottman, who've done this research, have looked at couples on video. They have a love lab, y'all. This is a real place, a love lab, where they looked at couples longitudinally over time. And they say, how can this one couple argue and be cool, and this other couple argues and they crash and burn? And what they found was that they had the 4 horsemen. The 4 horsemen: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. We're going to go over each one of those, right? Because if you have those in your relationship, you should be afraid, because over time, it's going to wear you down. Now, I'm not doing this a couple of times, doing this over a period in your marriage is not going to knock you out, but it's kind of like plaque. It takes time for plaque to build up, but once it builds up, that decay is real. The tooth is gone, right? The relationship is dead. All right. So let's talk about number 1. First horseman is criticism. Yes, you should address issues. You should. All right. But the approach is critical. Like, how you bring up an issue is going to be everything, right? It's the technique, it's the style, it's the tone. You shouldn't just be quiet in a relationship, because that's how you die inside it. You become mute, you become ignored, you become invisible, and all you're doing is enabling a bad habit to knock your marriage out, because you're just gonna say, I just don't like it. It's working well for you, but not for me. All right. So we actually need some good, healthy conflict so that neither one of you gets erased in the relationship or marriage. Does that make sense? All right. So realize that when you criticize, you provoke defensiveness. You never take out the trash. What? You never take out the trash. All right. You never cook. You never take care of the kids without me asking you to pick them up from school. I have to remind you every day, pick them up on time, right? You see how that criticism can lead to defensiveness, and it just drives you batty. So what I want you to do instead of replace criticism with wishes. Now this is game right here, and this is science. All right. Instead of saying you never take me out to eat, say, babe, I really wish we could go out to eat more. I like spending quality time with you. I like getting out the house. I want to just do something different. I like a different experience, a different ambiance to get us back to how we used to be when you would date. I just want some excitement. I want to try this new relationship. It would really make me feel awesome if we could just, take a vacation or get something to eat, or if you could touch me a little bit longer, foreplay before we make love. Do you see how much easier that is to receive versus you don't even touch me right? You just want to get bang, bang to it. That sounds like a criticism, right? Because you don't say, I know a lot of women that want to get to. Yeah. So express it as a wish versus a criticism. All right. Number two, defensiveness. I'm gonna be honest. I loathe defensiveness. All right. I don't like it. It does not match well with me. I do not do well with it. I don't like it. All right. Let me let y'all see it. All right. So defensiveness is when you defend something negative, you harm the team. So like this is something they're bringing up legitimate. Like you need to learn how to not interrupt and let me finish, or you really need to change jobs because it is draining you and you're bringing home negativity, or you really need to work on being a family man, or you really need to work on being present when you get home. You spend so much time on Shade Room and Baller Report and Gossip and so on and so forth that you don't have time for me. It's like you spend time with your phone before you spend time with me. That's legit, y'all. That's legitimate. All right. Those are legitimate things. All right. So instead of fighting, just own it. All right. But when you defend it, you're trying to protect your ego and you forget that you're in a relationship with someone. All right. You forget you're in a relationship. You're just trying to defend yourself, even though it's legit. Right? You are not doing what you need to do in this communication. I'm just trying to tell you somebody needs you to adjust so we can be great. So what I want you to do is replace defensiveness with acceptance of your flaws. Just own it. Your relationship is going to be better. And that's emotional maturity. And a lot of couples don't have. There are a lot of people that enter into relationships and they don't have the skills. Right? And like a lot of times I want them tall, dark, and handsome. I want her pretty, fine, and well spoken. you know but if they can't own that when they do wrong, I know some of y'all, if you can't own that you do some things wrong, that you're late sometimes, that you're inconsiderate sometimes, that you raise your voice sometimes, that you don't listen sometimes, right? You don't level up when you say you're gonna level up. You in the I'm a crew, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, but you don't do it. Eh, you can't be in a relationship if you can't own that, because you're not gonna be perfect. You feel me? When y'all looking for these spouses, please make sure y'all run through these four horsemen. Like, do you do any of these things on a consistent basis? So just accept it, just like you're right. I can't tell you how many people were just begging. Please just say, baby, you're right. I'll work on it, and actually work on it. Oh my God. All right. Number three, stonewalling. Stonewalling is where you build like a stone wall between you and your partner. And I'll be honest, it's 80% of the times this is men. All right. It is men. And my marriage is actually my wife. I'm putting out business out there. Right. I'm the one that's more likely to be critical. All right. And my wife is more likely to be the stonewaller, where she just builds up a stonewall and just shuts down. She's there. She doesn't walk away from the argument. She doesn't walk out the room, but she's not there. Y'all know what I'm saying? Like the curtains have closed. Sister girl is gone. She's there, but in her mind, she's on the beach in Acapulco somewhere. All right. She's just looking at me. Y'all know. All right. And so what happens is emotional flooding occurs when the heart beats above 100 beats a minute. right? So if you came into counseling, your counselor may or may not do that. They put these little things on your finger called galvanic skin responses. And what they do is they measure your heartbeat or your pulse, right? And when it goes beep, 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 because you have it pre-programmed, you get mad. You can't hear anything, and you're about to either explode or shut down. At that point, you should take a timeout and come back to it. Right? You should come back to it. You can't just drop it, but you don't need to keep going because everything's gonna blow up. So what you need to do is just call timeout and have a time when you come back when you're calmer, and that can be in a matter of minutes, and say, let's discuss this when you calm down. But I want to be very clear. All right. And this is a lot of men. A lot of men feel like the best way to protect their partner from emotional abuse or saying something that he regrets is just to shut down, like numb the emotions. And so I agree with that to a degree as far as um, stewing on your word, not stewing on your words, but chewing on your words, measuring your words. That's what I'm looking for. All right. Get it together, man. All right. Measuring your words, calming down, doing meditations, breathing so you don't say something you regret. I agree with that. But when you do it over and over and over and over again, and you don't come back to the conversation, you basically are running away and abandoning the relationship with your feelings, right? Because you're just shutting down. You're not participating, and you can't resolve conflict if you won't say anything. And it actually, for a lot of people, it takes them to the next level. It causes them to be more critical or do horseman number 4, like we're getting ready to get into. So avoid that. So what I need you to do is I need you to call a timeout and develop an emotional vocabulary. There are a lot of people, especially men, who just don't have an emotional vocabulary for expressing their feelings. They just shut down, or drink, or smoke, or cheat, or bust a hole in the wall. When you should say, you know what, right now I'm disappointed. Right now I'm hurt. Right now I feel betrayed. Right now I'm exhausted. Right now I feel so misunderstood. I feel like I feel overly criticized, right? That's an emotional vocabulary that's going to allow you to be able to express how you feel in the middle of a disagreement without shutting down, so that your partner knows, how to dance and how to make adjustments and how to compromise relative to how you are feeling. So let's get an emotional vocabulary versus shutting down and drinking and doing all, stuff is we really should have evolved from, with all this mental health, psychoeducation that's out there on the market. And then number 4, like I talked about, is contempt. Now, of all the 4 horsemen, contempt is by far the worst. All right. And contempt can just be a look. I mean, look at sister girl right here. Look at her. All right. I mean, she's looking like, can you believe how stupid this dude is? Isn't that the dumbest thing you ever heard? Right. Who even listen? And do you know that contempt can be even a look? Like, how many of y'all have gone off by someone looking? Like, you talking to them and they're like, or their facial expression. I know I've been in a relationship, and the way she looked at me, I'm for real. The bulls were racing in my head. I wanted a bull to hit her. I had a scene where she was running through the, in the little arena, and she was trying to get away, and 2 bulls just knocked at the same time, and I walk over and be like, I'm feeling, man, it's just a look can drive us to rage. Matter of fact, when they would code it in the love lab, where they had couples come in and do a longitudinal study and watch them how they argue and see what went wrong, they would actually code contempt just based on facial expressions. And the more that shows, the more likely your relationship is to fall apart, because that facial expression is really like a punch right to the face. All right. And so contempt also can be verbal. This is where you purposely hurting one another. Right. And so you're basically kind of like, contempt is like, what kind of man? What kind of man lets his wife get out the car and carry the groceries in? That's contempt. You basically, calling him a boy or not a man, right? What kind of woman refuses her husband sex? You basically calling her inadequate, right? You basically calling her neglectful. You know, like what on what planet does shutting down constitute effective communication? Right? What? Who needs to control the conversation so much? You can't even let me finish my speech. I can't even say what I need to say because you want to control everything, because you're a controlling, maniacal, evil, sadistic. You feel what I'm saying? Now that's when it starts to get toxic. Now that's not just disagreement. That's where you are really murdering. You're soul murdering your partner. And that's when it really gets bad. It's hard to come back from that. All right. So instead of doing that, you have to replace contempt with a culture of appreciation and good vibes. So let me just be real. There is no immediate response or reaction, unlike the other three, to contempt. Contempt creeps in after you've had a series of arguments. I'm talking about you've had a couple of rounds, a long extended season where you despise one another. And what you have to do is replace that with a culture of appreciation. That means I need you to express what your partner does well versus only talking about what they don't do well. We want to get that number to like 5 to 7 to 1. So what comes out your mouth, family? Let me just be specific. 7 times out of 8 should be positive. You great chef. You are a great provider. You listen really well. You have great creativity and energy. You are a wonderful family man. You are a dynamic wife and home teacher during the pandemic. Right? We need those things, and then you bring in. But I really wish we could talk about spending some more quality time on upgrades to the house, right? We need to be 7 times more verbally appreciative than we are critical. Because I know you mean well, and I'm guilty as well at times, where I will non-verbally appreciate, things my wife does in my mind. This looks nice. This is great. But I may not verbalize it. But let something be wrong, I will verbalize it. And so it seems like the marriage or my evaluation of my wife or your evaluation of your husband is actually more negative than it really is because we're not verbalizing the positive enough to balance out the verbalization of the negative. Does that make sense? So you have to create a culture of appreciation so that when you do bring up something, it's not the only thing. And of course, making sure that you are spending quality time, you all are dating, you all are doing the couple hashtag couples goals, listening to one another, not betraying one another, being faithful. You're doing those things to make it real so that you don't get to the point of contempt. So those 4 horsemen, let me make it even scarier. All right. Now I told you those 4 things lead you to 90% breakup. And let me be clear. There are a lot of couples who stay together just because they have to, because they can't afford to divorce or they don't want to divorce. And then you just roommates. All right. You have a toxic dynamic. You're just roommates and you just tolerate one another. So that counts as well. All right. Let me add something else to it, though. When you add a failed repair attempt, that number goes up to 95%. So you only have a 5% chance of making it over time. They were just like, couples just can't take it. All the love, all the God in the world is just not enough to be able to negate, to be a protective factor away from just the 4 horsemen and the failed repair attempts. Now, what is a failed repair attempt? It's where you try to go to your spouse and make up, right? Like she's trying to make up with this man, and he's like, "Nah, miss me with that," right? He look like he's softening though, y'all. He looked like she's getting there, right? But you never know. Some people can look like that, and then in a moment's notice, that they walking out the house. And so, repair attempts are usually very subtle, y'all. Usually very subtle. So it's not like, baby, I want to apologize for last night. I want our marriage to work. A lot of us are not that sophisticated when we're angry. All right. A repair attempt looks something like breaking the silence. Like, it's going to be a pretty day out. You talked to your mom lately? I was going to get something to eat. Want me to bring you something back? It can even be a text. That's a repair attempt. It's the first person to want to stop fighting by doing something positive, by starting the conversation. It could be a back rub. It could be a gift. It could be anything. Usually it's subtle. And what we want repair attempts, in all fairness, to be even. If you're always doing the repairing, if you're always doing the apology, something is wrong with that relationship. I have been there and I had to exit that relationship because I realized if anyone was going to repair, it was going to be me. And if I didn't repair, it didn't get repaired. Now, that doesn't work for me. I'm sorry. That's why you have to have standards. That doesn't work for me. If you can't get into the mud with me, if you can't hold on to the rope when it's burning with me, if you can't open up your mouth and communicate via text, letter, or verbal when you're in your feelings the same way, we can't skate together. We can't play marbles together. We can't do life together because I need you to be able to repair when I'm off. We both can't let go of the rope at the same time. Someone has to be the MVP, and it can't always be me, fam. Y'all feel me? I'm being for real. Who said it was? Why is it my job to always do this? So here's the heart of the matter, y'all. Marriages thrive when friendship and teamwork and communication thrive. When we're doing those things on a consistent basis. Let me just be up close and personal. When you're dating your wife and you're communicating with her and you have relationship skills to make it through arguments, you're gonna make it. If you are committed in a relationship that I want to be better, I don't want to just go, I don't want to be mediocre. I want us to get better each year. I want us to get tighter. I want us to be able to understand one another. So when tough times come, we're battle proven. If you have that mindset, you're going to be fine in your marriage because you want to. You're going to go to marriage retreats. Y'all check out A Weekend for Love. I'm just plugging that. I should have had a slide, but I just thought about it just now. Go to aweekendforlove.com and check out my wife and I, as well as Dwayne and Michelle Gainey, run a phenomenal top of the line luxury beachside vacation marriage retreat. That is, we're there to spoil your marriage, and you're there with a community of other married couples who want to upgrade their marriage. No mediocre marriage is allowed. And I don't mean you're not in a place of mediocrity. Let's be real. Every marriage goes through sucky, mediocre, doing okay and thriving. If you don't want to stay there, you see what I'm saying? Or you want to go to the next level. Like my wife and I trying to thrive. We're trying to be dope, with our man. We want to have a marriage that other people look at and it's as good as it is in person as it is on social media, right? So we work towards that because we know how difficult that can be. All right. So you do things like that. You go to counseling, you go to retreats that your church has, you talk to other couples, you read the books, you upgrade. If you really want to be great at marriage, we want to be great at marriage, right? But let me be real. Some conflict is necessary for mutual marital satisfaction. If you never argue, that's a problem because one of you is lying. All right. Now, I don't mean all the time. I'm not telling you, I'm not bending to the culture. I just mean there should be some necessary conflict. Like, okay, I don't want to eat out this week. I'd rather stay in. Or, you know what? I really want to invest in crypto. I really want to go towards options. Or I really want to go towards investing in myself and my own projects. And I'd like for it to be my season. We've been doing a lot of that for you, but I'd like for my season to go. I'm doing a little bit too much child rearing. I'd like to balance that out for you to be able to take some of the load. Or, hey, I like to retire early. I'd like for you to level up and get more money so that we can retire earlier together. Or maybe I want to keep working because I don't want to be home with you all day. Let me work full time and then you retire, or let me go to part time. You need to have those conversations so that neither one of you gets erased in the marriage. Now, that part is cool. And if you can do it with skills, if you can do it without the four horsemen, if you can replace, criticism with a wish, defensiveness from owning your stuff legitimately as soon as it's brought up, if you can. If you can replace stonewalling with taking a time out and having an emotional vocabulary so you don't shut down, and you can replace contempt with appreciation and doing what we just said, actively building up your marriage so that you don't get to that ugly phase, man, you can have an amazing marriage. You can be great even if you're not married. If you're young looking at this in a relationship, you can have something that's thriving, that's going in the direction of long-term commitment and marriage. So I'm excited about you all, right? So now you know what to do. You know how not to argue, right? You know how not to fight. So if y'all like this, subscribe to this channel, share it with your friends, share it with your church, invite me into, wherever you are having marital seminars. Dr. Tartt, my wife, we're there. One or both of us. You can have double for your trouble, or one to hold it down. You let me know. That's my contact information. Hit me up. I'd be glad to do it. Of course, we're gonna have some conversations about negotiations. Some stuff is a love offering. Some stuff is not. So let me know. So I'm excited. I am excited. Now you know what not to do. And knowing what not to do is half the battle. And I just remixed that G.I. Joe slogan. That might be before y'all time, right? Knowing is half the battle. So you know what to do. So I'm excited. So let's get into our relationships. Let's make sure that we're doing them the right way. And if we're going to disagree, let's do it with some relationship skills and communicate the right way. So I love y'all. Take care. And of course, God bless.